The Tennessee Titans steal Calvin Ridley and what might be the biggest free agency move so far. I'm breaking it down on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Calvin Ridley is a Tennessee Titan. At the break of dawn, the Titans come in and steal Calvin Ridley away from the Jacksonville Jaguars. A huge move, 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. This is a great value, an incredibly perfect fit for the Titans and Calvin Ridley. I'm going to break down the move. Before I get into it, do want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. 25 years as a Tennessee Titans fanatic. I've covered the team for USA Today, Sports Illustrated, and I'm a certified film junkie ready to break down all of the latest news, everything you need to know. So again, make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the number one Tennessee Titans podcast in the world. This is a monster move for the Tennessee Titans. Calvin Ridley is exactly what the Tennessee Titans needed. A bona fide number one wide receiver. And I have been telling you guys for weeks that the Titans needed to be all in on Calvin Ridley. Once we saw Mike Evans go back to Tampa, we saw T. Higgins get the franchise tag, we saw Michael Pittman go back to Indianapolis, there was no question about it. Calvin Ridley was by far the best wide receiver on the market, and the Tennessee Titans needed to go get him to pair Calvin Ridley, who is an elite separator, elite route runner with great speed, with a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, who is a physical presence. This is a perfect pairing for Will Levis. This is how you elevate your young quarterback. And everyone has been freaking out for 48 hours now. What are the Titans doing? Rand's asleep. Shut up. This is it. The Titans have been making moves, and they make what could be the biggest move of free agency, bringing in Calvin Ridley. Again, Ridley is an excellent route runner, great speed, 6'1", has great size. Calvin Ridley, 71.9% success rate against man coverage. Calvin Ridley, 80.4% success rate against zone coverage. This is a guy who wins in all areas of the field. Everybody said he had a down year last year. He had over 1,000 yards. He had a similar stat line to DeAndre Hopkins. No one said Hopkins had a down year, and he had missed a year and a half of football. So Calvin Ridley is going to be better in 2024 than he was in 2023. This is an excellent move for the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, last year, 76 catches, 1,016 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That's what the Titans just added to their offense, a bona fide receiver. Now, let's talk about the contract, because that's the next big part. The Titans gave Calvin Ridley 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. And someone said he got overpaid on Twitter, and Calvin Ridley replied and said, nah, it was the right amount. I want to throw a couple of things out here right now. This is a great value on the contract for Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is getting about $23 million per year. He got $50 million guaranteed. Both of those numbers have him at about 9th or 10th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And keep this in your back pocket. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers that are going to get paid more than Calvin Ridley, and the Titans got Calvin Ridley before those guys got their contract. So by this time next year, and probably maybe by the time the season actually starts, Calvin Ridley is going to be paid like the 15th to 17th highest paid receiver. We are getting a top 12 wide receiver for top 17 wide receiver pay. $23 million a year is Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin money. $50 million guaranteed is Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin money. So you're telling me that you wouldn't pay the same amount as Terry McLaurin to get Calvin Ridley? Now, everybody wants to talk about the age as well. Calvin Ridley, 29 years old. He's going to turn 30 soon. He missed a year and a half of football, including a year-long suspension. Calvin Ridley's body is not 30 years old. Calvin Ridley does not have the amount of tread on his tires that a normal 30-year-old wide receiver would have. He's got more tread on his tires. He's got less miles on his body than a 30-year-old wide receiver would typically have. So this is huge for me. This is a massive signing for the Tennessee Titans. Again, 4 years, $92 million. $50 million guaranteed for Calvin Ridley, a 1,000-yard receiver who is still in his prime, who has elite route running, elite separation ability. I read you guys the success rates. 71% success rate against man, 80% success rate against zone. This is a guy who gets open consistently all the time. If you wanted a separator, if you wanted somebody who was a route runner who could constantly get open at a moment's notice for Will Levis, this is your guy. To pair Calvin Ridley with DeAndre Hopkins and what the Titans do in the draft. The Titans still need to add a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds of the draft. This is huge, man. The Titans are flipping the wide receiver position overnight. All right. Absolutely monumentous decision to sign Calvin Ridley. And again, to steal him away from the Jacksonville Jaguars. The talk for the last 48 hours has been Calvin Ridley is between the Patriots and the Jags. The Jaguars have to pay a 3rd-round pick for having Calvin Ridley for 1 year. I mean, this is incredible. Calvin Ridley played 17 games last year, all 17 games. The last full season that Calvin Ridley played, he had 90 catches and 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. This is a guy who has elite ability and can be a great wide receiver right now for the Titans. If they go out and sign an offensive tackle and draft an offensive tackle and then draft another wide receiver, like this team may be able to flip this thing quicker than I even imagined. This is truly a tremendous, tremendous move by Ran Carthon. Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan did not go to the Georgia Pro Day because they stayed home to deal with free agency. And all of you guys were freaking out. The Titans are getting cooked. Ran Carthon sucks. Titans ain't doing nothing. Blah, 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 blah. Boom. Well, here you go. This is for you. So again, I love this move. Calvin Ridley is a perfect fit for the Tennessee Titans offense. Now he can be a guy who can be a match with Will Levis, get on the same page with DeAndre Hopkins. And again, people are freaking out about the contract. Guys, give it 6 months. He's going to be the 17th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. $23 million per year with the cap explosion and the contracts that are about to come in at wide receiver. That is a bargain. That is a value. This is an incredibly fair deal for Calvin Ridley. And again, for the Titans to add to what they are building, but also take away from what Jacksonville is doing. They paid a 3rd-round pick for 1 year of Calvin Ridley. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Man, this is great. And remember this. Remember this, Titans fans. We finally got the contract details on Tony Pollard. $4 million cap hit. It's a 2-year, $15 million deal. The Titans can get out of it after 2 years with only $2 million of dead cap. The Tony Pollard deal looks totally different when we got the real details. So Calvin Ridley, 4 years for $92 million, sounds like a lot. $50 million guaranteed sounds like a lot. When we get the real contract values and the real details of the contract, it's going to be even lower than that. So this is the most expensive than it's ever going to look, and it's still a great deal. Think about it. 7 other wide receivers are going to get paid more than Calvin Ridley in the next 6 months to a year. This is a great value contract. He's getting paid the same amount as Terry McLaurin and Michael Pittman Jr. Let Ran Carthon cook. And Carthon kept cooking with more depth signings on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to dive into the other moves the Titans made and the targets that are still on the board right now. Before I get into it, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets. I've personally purchased a ton of tickets on Game Time. I've gone to concerts. I've gone to basketball, football, baseball. They also have comedy and theater events as well. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets because it takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They have last-minute killer deals. They have all-in prices. You get a real view from your seat, and you get a best price guarantee with the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference. Again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's live reaction to the Calvin Ridley signing. The Titans made some other moves as well. We're going to get into all of it. Before I continue, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the #1 Tennessee Titans podcast in the world. Throw a thumbs up on the video right now as well if you are a fan of the Calvin Ridley signing. Let's get some Titan ups in the chat, baby. Huge signing. Calvin Ridley, great move. I just talked about why the contract is a good value, why Calvin Ridley is a great fit for the Titans offense. We got a lot to discuss, though. The Titans made some other signings recently as well, adding some depth on the offensive side of the ball, and they brought back Nick Folk. So we're going to dive into the other moves that the Titans made on Wednesday. #1, Sadiq Charles. The Titans signed offensive tackle, 6'4", 320 pounds, 25 years old. It was only 1 year, $2.5 million. Guys, the reality here is with Sadiq Charles, he is a backup offensive lineman with a ton of athletic talent. He's got agile feet. He plays with good effort. He has good length. He's got to work on his hands, got to work on his power, but he works perfectly within the Titans system. So I think Sadiq Charles was a good signing by the Titans as a depth player, as a role player. They also brought in Mason Rudolph as the backup quarterback. I think that was a great move as well, up to $3.5 million. Mason Rudolph is probably going to be $2.5 million. He's won 8 games out of 13 starts in his career. He's 8-4-1. So he's a guy who actually wins football games. He had a great end of the season last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He went 3-0 to finish the regular season, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Mason Rudolph was a great signing as a backup quarterback. Again, for me, what I want out of the backup quarterback position is if Will Levis gets hurt and is out for a couple quarters, if Will Levis gets hurt and is out for a couple of weeks, I want somebody who can come in and actually win football games. Mason Rudolph can do that. Again, 8-4-1 out of his 13 starts in his career. So I absolutely love the signing of Mason Rudolph. I like the signing of Sadiq Charles as a backup interior offensive lineman who can compete at guard, and the Titans can work on developing because he's still 25. And again, the Titans brought back Nick Folk. Nick Folk was super consistent for the Titans last year. He had 0 issues until the stupid Titans former special teams coordinator, Craig Ackerman, got Ryan Stonehouse hurt on back-to-back punt blocks, and then the Titans didn't have their regular holder, and then, Nick Folk missed a couple extra points. But other than that, Nick Folk was absolutely fantastic for the Titans last year. So you bring Nick Folk back, you bring in a young kicker as well to develop alongside of him, and you're good to go. So Sadiq Charles, Mason Rudolph, Nick Folk. The Titans also brought back Julius Chestnut on a one-year deal, running back 3, running back 4. That's fine. They also brought back Dr. Gibby, Jack Gibbons, as an exclusive rights free agent. If Jack Gibbons is your backup linebacker, you're doing okay, all right? But outside of those depth signings, again, back to the Calvin Ridley piece. Absolutely fantastic to go out and sign Calvin Ridley and add him to this offense with Lloyd Cushenberry, Tony Pollard. Now you add Calvin Ridley, fantastic. I said it earlier. If you're just joining us, I'll repeat it again. If you heard it before, I'll repeat it for you again because it's important to drive it home. Number one, Calvin Ridley is still an excellent player. 6'1". He has the ability to play on the outside. Now, I think that Calvin Ridley is more of a Z wide receiver. He's not somebody you want on the line of scrimmage. He has some struggles with press from time to time. I think that if you have DeAndre Hopkins as your X wide receiver, and then you have Calvin Ridley as your Z wide receiver, who's the guy who can go in motion, who gets a running start off the line of scrimmage to use his speed, use his quickness, use his route running ability, I think that's an excellent fit for the Tennessee Titans. So Calvin Ridley is a player. Again, the numbers show it too. 71.9% success rate against man, 80.4% success rate against zone. He's a guy who still gets open. Again, incredible route runner. So as a player, Calvin Ridley, still a really good fit. On the contract note, some people freaking out about the contract. I think you're totally out of bounds here. You got to have some foresight. $23 million a year. That's 10th most in the NFL, right there with Michael Pittman and Terry McLaurin. Okay, Calvin Ridley should get paid as much as Terry McLaurin. I'm not worried about that. The guaranteed money, again, $50 million per year. The real guarantees are probably around 46 or so. Calvin Ridley, 10th, 9th, highest paid on the guarantee. So he's about the 10th highest paid wide receiver in the league. And like I just read to you guys, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, all of these wide receivers are going to get paid more than Calvin Ridley. So it's not going to be very long before Calvin Ridley is the 16th, 17th highest paid wide receiver. And if you have DeAndre Hopkins at $18 million and you have Calvin Ridley at $22 million, that is an excellent wide receiver group and a great value at the wide receiver position. And people want to say Calvin Ridley's 29. He's going to be 30 years old. I understand that, but he missed a year and a half. So the tread on his tires is not equal to what it would be for a normal 30-year-old wide receiver. The miles that he's had on his body are not the same as what you would get from a normal 30-year-old wide receiver. So Calvin Ridley still has multiple years of prime. And here's the reality, that by the time Calvin Ridley's deal is done, Will Levis's rookie deal is going to be done. So if it's not working, you pay Will Levis, you move off of Calvin Ridley, and the Titans still need to sign a wide receiver, draft a wide receiver. Imagine if the Titans have DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Malik Neighbors. Think about that for a second. Think about that. Absolutely fantastic. I love this move for the Titans. I can't say it enough. To steal him away from Jacksonville. What an incredible move. Great value on the contract. Great player as well. Love this for the Tennessee Titans. Love the offensive depth signings that they've had throughout the day. Now we turn our attention to defense because there are some targets that the Titans are interested in, according to reports, that I think they should definitely be going after. We're going to talk about that. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. All right, guys. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you could still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. The offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Titans fans, let's cap off today's instant reaction to the Calvin Ridley news. It's been a big day for the Tennessee Titans. Before we get into the targets the Titans need to go after next, do want to thank you again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. 1,000 people in the chat live right now watching the #1 Tennessee Titans podcast in the world. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Also want to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's called Locked On Sports Today. And baseball fans, mark your calendar for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Be the first to get local insight from MLB local experts on the Locked On Podcast Network. Again, find it March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern on Locked On Sports Today, the 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Calvin Ridley to the Tennessee Titans. Absolutely massive. Again, thumbs up in the chat. Tighten up in the chat. This is a great move. This is a great move for the Titans to stack out the wide receiver position. Great value on the contract as well with a little bit of financial foresight. It's obvious the Titans made a good, fair deal for Calvin Ridley. Going to be a 2-year deal. I think that that's absolutely fair and makes sense for the Titans. They also brought in Sadiq Charles, also brought in Julius Chestnut, also brought back Nick Folk. Jack Gibbons back on an exclusive rights free agent deal. So the Titans are making a ton of moves. All you guys got so impatient. You all got so impatient. Rank Arthon's doing nothing. The Titans are losing. Oh, my God. It was day 2. And look what day 3 brought you. Look what day 3 brought you. But the Titans got more work to do. And there are plenty of people who the Titans have rumored interest in. And the Titans have a lot more money to work with as well. So we're going to dive into who the Titans should be going after next. And that list starts with Chase Young. So Chase Young is set to have a visit with the Tennessee Titans. And I know that he has had injuries. I know that he's had inconsistencies. I know that he's had effort issues as well. But Chase Young still has great first-round pedigree. He has a great skill set. And if the Titans bring him in on a 1-year deal with a ton of incentives, hey, sacks, starts, all of that stuff, if you get a very incentive-laden deal and you give, let's say, 1 year, $10 million with $6 million guaranteed, and then some incentives to get you up to $10 or $12 million, I would do that on a 1-year deal for Chase Young. Where the Titans are at right now, in my opinion, where the Titans are at right now is they need to go take chances on guys who either want to get back to the market after the year after a good season, or guys who are younger guys who didn't pan out, they are busts or whatever, and the Titans go take a chance on him. Chase Young is that kind of guy. So that's why it would make sense for the Titans to entertain Chase Young. Not only that, but the Titans are also rumored to be interested in Jerome Baker, the linebacker formerly from the Miami Dolphins. He's a guy who's great in coverage. He has great speed. Kenneth Murray is terrible in coverage. Kenneth Murray does not have good awareness. So if you pair Kenneth Murray, who's a downhill, physical, athletic guy who needs to go forward, with a guy like Jerome Baker, who can play in coverage, who can go backwards. I think that would make a ton of sense. So I really think the Titans should go after Jerome Baker. They have rumored interest in him. They're going to meet with him. I think that makes a ton of sense for the Tennessee Titans. But another name that makes a ton of sense is Eric Armstead, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers. The Titans are also rumored to have interest in Armstead. They're going to be a player there. The Titans need more help on the defensive line. They need an interior run-stuffing defensive lineman, but they also need somebody who can replace Danico Autry, who has inside-outside versatility, who can put their hand in the dirt and rush from the interior, but also be a physical defensive end on the line of scrimmage on early downs. I think that Eric Armstead makes a ton of sense for the Titans. Again, probably a 1 to 2 year deal. Let him get back to the market next year and see if he can get even more money. There's the San Francisco connection with Rand Carthon. Eric Armstead, a huge target for the Tennessee Titans. So those are three guys that I think make the most sense. Chase Young, Jerome Baker, Eric Armstead. The Titans have reported interest in all of those players. So that's where the Titans need to go next. They need to focus on the defensive side of the ball and add some starters over there. At offensive tackle, I still want the Titans to go get Jonah Williams. It's going to be a 1 year deal worth $10, $12 million. I think the Titans need to go get Jonah Williams. If they get one more offensive tackle, man, they are absolutely cooking. Absolutely cooking. So I think Jonah Williams, Jerome Baker, Chase Young, Eric Armstead are the targets the Titans need to go after next. And let's just say this. If the Titans feel confident that they can get Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu or whoever, if the Titans feel confident they can get their left tackle in the draft, now that you have your wide receiver, maybe you do trade a second-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed. Maybe you trade your second-round pick and you get L'Jarius Sneed in a third-round pick. I think that this makes it more likely that the Titans are willing to give up additional capital to get L'Jarius Sneed. I think that this makes it more likely that the Titans go get L'Jarius Sneed. So imagine Calvin Ridley, L'Jarius Sneed, Lloyd Cushenberry, Joe Alt. I mean, again, the Titans could flip this thing quicker than I ever imagined. Woo! And again, I agree. Sean put it in the chat. Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons is another guy who the Titans have reported interest in, who would make a ton of sense. So, I mean, the Titans have more work to do, and everyone's wondering, how much money do they have? How much more money do they have? Guys, Tony Pollard's deal was 3 years, $24 million. So $8 million per year. His cap hit was $4 million. Chidobe Awuzie, his deal was 3 years, $13 million. Well, you look at the cap hit, it's only $6 million. So Chidobe Awuzie and Tony Pollard cost the Titans $10 million on the salary cap. So you talk about cap space. Tony Pollard and Chidobe Awuzie took away $10 million of that cap space. Lloyd Cushenberry is probably going to be another 10. Calvin Ridley at most is going to be like 20. Probably more like 15. So the Titans still have, in terms of effective cap space, the Titans still have $30, $40 million to play with of effective cap space. So, man, there is still so much work to be done. They're still going to have a ton of different options. This is an incredible day, an incredible free agency for the Titans, though. Calvin Ridley is a Tennessee Titan. They have stolen him away from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, a great player, 6'1", can still get open, good against man, good against zone, great speed, younger than his age says, good value on the contract. It's not going to be long before he's the 15th or 16th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL with all the people who are getting paid after him. I mean, these are the moments, guys. These are the moments that we will remember when we look back at this team in a few years. The organizational change, the hiring of the coaching staff, the total philosophy change for the Titans as an organization, making this move right here, the moves that they made so far, absolutely excellent stuff. Great day to be a Tennessee Titans fan. If more news happens later tonight, I will be live once again to break it all down with you. but I love the Calvin Ridley signing. I love the depth pieces on offense. Love bringing back Nick Folk. The Titans are absolutely cooking. Once again, after a quiet day two, I told you guys yesterday that this is the calm before the storm. And the storm is hitting, and we are dancing in the rain. But that is going to do it for this live emergency reaction edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans. Let's go.